if the Biden administration tries to retroactively force Americans to pay a $200 tax on a gun they bought years ago because it has a pistol brace that was legal. And I got to imagine that a federal court will intervene here if that happens. Now, there is a rule in the Constitution. You can't make laws, ex post facto laws. You can't make a law that punishes someone for something that happened in the past. But it only applies to criminal law. It doesn't technically apply to tax law. I suspect we may see this happen. If a court intervenes, they're going to say you can't go back and make Americans, having already legally bought their guns, now suddenly pay fines or risk becoming lawbreakers because you changed the rules on them. Particularly when so many Americans are opposed to it. I don't think it's going to work well for the ATF, but they are surely going to try to do it. The phone number here, 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Phil, you're going to be up next. Phil, welcome to the program. Hi there.
Hi, Eric. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Anyway, I was calling in to comment about the cop that was killed in Holly Springs, Georgia yesterday. I heard on my way to work today that the department was setting up a GoFundMe page to cover his funeral costs. And my question is why? I mean, if an officer is killed in the line of duty, his family really shouldn't have to bear the cost of his funeral. The department of the municipality he works for should. With everything else that cops are facing these days, and his family has to worry about how to bury him.
Yeah. I, honest to goodness, have no idea what the law is on that. I would assume that the city would step in and take care of it, but there are certainly costs I think the city isn't going to want to cover that the family will need to cover. So for those who aren't aware of the story, a North Georgia police officer, this according to CNN, and a motorist are dead after the fleeing driver's car dragged the officer down the road and the officer shot the driver. Holly Springs officer Joe Burson, he was 25 years old, and at least one other officer had stopped Anzi Dolce, D-O-L-C-E, on suspicion of speeding on Holly Springs Eastern Edge just after 11 p.m. Wednesday. Dolce eventually attempted to escape in his car, which dragged Officer Burton down a road until the vehicle crashed. At some point, Burson fatally shot Dolce, 29, of Cherokee County. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation has not specified whether the dragging or the gunfire happened first or provided details about what preceded either action. Other officers on the scene rendered aid to Burson and Dolce. They were taken to separate hospitals where they were pronounced dead. It was just a simple stop. Holly Springs Police Chief Tom Cahaley said at a news conference. The bottom line is every bit of this could have been avoided. Cahaley said investigators believe Burson died as a result of being dragged, but an official determination has not been made. Sad. Now, here's the thing. A lot of police officers in this country get killed every year. And somehow, the Black Lives Matters movement, Antifa, and progressive activists have made police officers the bad guys. Police officers are not the bad guys. But because police officers are now being targeted by politicians in progressive areas who are trying to placate the mob, police officers are now quitting the job at an alarming rate around the country. Why would you want your child to be a police officer? They're going to be excoriated across the board by everyone. Police officers, there are some bad ones. They're the exception. Police officers are necessary. They're needed. You have an organized movement on the left in America these days to try to claim that policing had something to do with the Old South, that it was based on regimented organizations that were rounding up black people and returning slaves to their masters. It's not true. Policing comes from Great Britain. The modern policing regime comes from London and Scotland Yard. You know, the London who was was it Robert Peel, the British Prime Minister, the first British Prime Minister? He organized London policing. That's why they're called Bobbies in London. Their nickname is after him, because he set about organizing the police regime that was then transported and embraced by New York and Boston and spread around this country. And yet the left wants to be as ignorant of that history as they want to be ignorant of the history of this country and redefine everything by the 1619 project. You got to have police in this country. You've got to have law and order in this country. Our ability to carry out our lives and function in life is dependent on the need for us to have police. Don Lemon on CNN, though, thinks that when you engage on these issues and you're opposed to critical race theory and you want facts, that somehow you're privileged.
Sure. That's their idea of that's the whole thing about what privilege is that you people don't like to have their pleasure interrupted, their peace interrupted. And so people think that it should be the way that it should be because they have been taught that in this country. But, you know, having people come to the realization, especially ancestors of slaves, that they were enslaved and that they were beaten, that they were sold, that they weren't able to accrue wealth, that they weren't able to go to school, they weren't able to go vote. You think that makes them feel good? So the folks on the other side, stop making it about you and be curious instead of judgmental.
Be curious instead of judgmental. Folks, you know, you've got the right as a taxpayer to demand that your school systems teach real history. You've got the right as a taxpayer to show up and be heard in your local community. You've got the right as a taxpayer to be engaged in the community. You've got the right to tell your school board. You've got the right, and a lot of parents did. In fact, I heard from, you know, the other day I was talking about you got to be engaged in your local community. You've got to be willing to be heard and stand up and stop focusing so much on Washington. Go to your local school board meeting, go to your city council meeting, go to your county commission meeting. They're going to impact you and your family way more than the bureaucrats and the politicians in Washington. And I heard from several people who went to Cherokee County or went to Forsyth County in Georgia, and they showed up and they spoke. Those two school districts, Republican areas of the state of Georgia, the local school boards wanted to embrace critical theory. Cherokee County decided to ditch it altogether. And the superintendent they hired, an assistant superintendent they hired to oversee and implement their critical race theory agenda, quit. Forsyth County, Georgia, heavily Republican, has decided to go on and continue to pursue critical race theory. They're just going to change the name to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And parents are mad, and they showed up at the meeting, and the school board doubled down. I suspect you're about to see some organized campaigning to get them out. We need to get some of the people from the Carroll Independent School District in Texas to come on and talk about how they organized and took people back. You know, I was actually talking to a guy in that area in Carroll Independent School District in Texas, and one of the things that they did is they started a newspaper. Talk about old school. The parents pooled their money and started a newspaper, and they voluntarily contributed articles. They sought out articles from people who were experts in critical race theory, explained what it is, explained why it was bad. They educated the parents. They were dropping them in mailboxes around the community, letting people know what was going on. And it mobilized the entire community for action, and they came prepared. They had the arguments. They knew what they were talking about. This is one of the things I find really frustrating is that so many of the people who rail on critical race theory or support it don't actually know what it is. I have worked very hard to educate myself on what it is. Tim Keller, the theologian, actually has one of the best pieces that easily makes it very understandable what it actually is. I've written about it a lot since I've gotten familiar with it. I've had people in this program. I'm going to have some people next week talking about what exactly it is. I'm just dumbfounded by the number of people who don't understand what it is on both sides. And a lot of people, it's kind of like this Juneteenth stuff. I'm seeing some conservatives who last year, when President Trump said he wanted Juneteenth as a holiday, they were all about it. And this year they're like, I don't think so. And the Democrats want it. Your principles and ideas and beliefs should not be malleable based on who's in charge. And there are a lot of people who say it's bad or it's good based on who's supporting it or opposing it. Really, it's a bad idea. And the more parents learn about it, particularly black parents, the more offended they are by it, that their kids are going to be taught in school that they are oppressed and can never escape the oppression because the country's systemically racist. The whole thing is crazy talk, but this is where we are in the country. People have lost their minds.
Politics, news,
The phone number, should you wish to be on this here program, is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. John McWhorter is a Columbia University professor, and he writes, since a year ago, CRT-infused members of the elect, that's what he calls the progressive elite in the country, traditionally overrepresented in the world of schools of education, have sought to take the opportunity furnished by our racial reckoning to turn American schools into academies of anti-racist indoctrination. And the backlash is on. One by one, parents, teachers, and even students are speaking out against the idea that the soul of education must be to battle the power that whites have over others. Yes, that's the watch cry. It's why the elect can make so little sense to the rest of us. They actually believe that the heart of all intellectual, moral, and artistic endeavors must be battling power differentials. They get this from critical race theory, and what most alarms the elect is that state legislatures are proposing to ban the teaching of critical race theory in schools, Florida being the latest example. One response to this backlash is that anyone who questions the takeover of schools by CRT is against school kids learning about racism and wants school kids to have the adulatory view of the American story typical of the 1950s and before. A sarcastic tweet by a certain famous black figure employed by the New York Times who won a Pulitzer Prize recently encapsulates this kind of view. Quote, our children must learn that we are the greatest and freest country in the history of the world, and we will demonstrate this by barring educators from teaching things we do not like, and in the name of liberty, mandating government control of what ideas can be exchanged. So, whenever a body of lawmakers or anyone else is against their kids being taught not how, but what to think, and call this critical race theory, just as many of its teachers do, that body of lawmakers is a nest of racists. You will be called a racist if you stand in the way of the left's agenda. Always and forever. It doesn't matter the issue. This is just the latest. And they keep moving the goalposts, too. So the President of the United States signed into law yesterday Juneteenth as a federal holiday. Today is now a federal holiday. Your mail probably will not be delivered today. Maybe tomorrow, because tomorrow is the actual day, so maybe they won't deliver it on Saturday. But now the left is saying, now we need a new flag. Now that we've got Juneteenth as a holiday, now we've got to have a new flag to actually capture the fullness of America. There's an op-ed, it's CBS, or Market Watch rather, for Juneteenth, America Needs a New Flag. It's by Macy Gray, the singer. Remember her? That's right. Time for a new flag, she claims. By the way, you know, the left they're fighting amongst themselves now because of the pride flag. They've added all sorts of pastels and shapes to the pride flag, and some people are really upset about it. The left will consume themselves. But we got other stuff we got to talk about, including how the media has been covering the COVID pandemic. I want to keep taking your phone calls as well. It's nice to talk to you guys. It is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. When we come back, the media still hasn't figured out Americans drive pickup trucks and don't like to wear masks when they don't have to. Hello there. Welcome. It is Erick Erickson all across America. Actually, confession. I want to pull back the curtain if I can for just a moment for all of you. I was doing for a year and a half 2 shows. I was doing a 9 to noon show that was my show, and I was doing a 4 to 6 show on WSB in Atlanta. And unfortunately, when all of our friend Rush Limbaugh passed away, radio stations across America had to make some tough choices. And I was very, very confident of myself that when WSB moved me noon to 3, I could just keep doing 9 to noon and noon to 3. And I have to tell you, it is very humbling. I couldn't do it. I mean, I was doing it, but it was having a toll on my health to the point I ultimately wound up throwing a blood clot into my lungs because it was 6 hours of sitting, really 9 hours of sitting, 3 hours trying to prepare 2 separate shows, and I didn't want to just repeat the first show on the second show. And then 6 hours of talking. My longest break is 6 minutes. It was a very, very tough struggle, and it became a very mental struggle as well, because no one really wanted me to talk about what was going on. And I try to be very transparent in life with everybody. I try to tell you guys what's going on, whether it's my wife's cancer or struggles we're having as a family. And I try to live life with my audience and relate. I don't just want to be the guy who comes on the radio and gives you the news. I want to be the guy who keeps you company, and we develop a relationship. That was some of the best advice Rush ever gave me, is build a relationship with your audience. And I couldn't really talk about it. I was specifically asked not to talk about it, and that made it even worse. I mean, it was taking a toll on my mental health to not be able to share the struggle with you. And I just felt like if I could just share it, I could it would make everything better. And I really do think it would. In my life, when things bottle up, if I just get on radio, it's very cathartic for me to come on radio and just have it out with you guys. Just bare my soul. It really actually does me good to be here, and because I know so many of you struggle with things in life, and I can say, you know what, I'm struggling too. Here's the struggle that I've got, and that was a real struggle, and not being able to share it with you guys made it actually even worse. It magnified the problem. I was in a dark spot there for a while, and then those clots. Well, we finally were able to make one show. And so you guys who are on WSB in Atlanta, you hear my show, but also now most of my affiliates for my morning show had already moved me noon to 3, and it made sense to just have one show that is it's my WSB show, but it's also my Erick Erickson show that I can give to whichever station anywhere wants it. And we've got more than a dozen stations across the state of Georgia that carry the show. From Brunswick and Valdosta up to Rome and Dalton and Trenton rather, and over to Clarksville and Athens, around the state. I was on in Macon, which is where I got my start in radio by accident when the dude got arrested in the crack house, and they asked me to fill in, and nobody realized I wasn't a radio guy. And they had to drop me. Dan Bongino, of course, is Cumulus's guy, and that's a Cumulus station. And they decided to drop me. And man, I get on a daily basis emails from people saying, "Where are you? Why aren't you back?" Which is deeply frustrating to not be there, because we still live in the area and our kids go to school in Macon, and I very much want to be there, but I can't right now. But nonetheless, we very deliberately kept this show a Georgia show. On Monday, we began slipping outside the state of Georgia, finally into national syndication with stations in North Carolina. We've got one coming in Montana and one in Texas. It's nice to finally, having done this for a decade, start growing. And so next week when you start hearing people from all over, and it's weird on the live stream for my morning show. I got like several thousand people in California who listen, and a whole lot of people in Texas. That was one of the reasons the Texas station decided they'd get us, is because we're already getting thousands of listeners in Texas on the live stream. So we're growing, and y'all are with me, and I appreciate it very much. Just living life with you. And I'm very happy to take your phone calls, as always, about stuff. And you can always reach me. You can follow me on Instagram at EW Erickson. You can email me, Erick at ewerickson.com. Go to the ewerickson.com. That's the website. Or you can call the show, 877-973-7425. I want to spend some time talking about how the media just doesn't seem to understand any of you. But before I do that, Dave has been on hold very patiently, and I want to get to him and move on from critical theory with Dave's call. Dave, welcome to the program. Sorry you had to wait so long.
Oh, no worries, Eric. No, I don't think I'm a racist for opposing critical race theory.
Good.
And the reason for that is, what is the end game for the Democrats? This is going to do nothing but divide us. It's not going to create more jobs for blacks. It's not going to stop violent black-on-black crime. You know, it's not going to put more money in their pocket. What is the end game with this?
I have thought a long time about what must be the end game for critical theory, and there are a couple of things that I think are going on. One of which is, it's no secret, the Sierra Club today sent out a text message to anyone who has a Sierra Club account saying that now that Juneteenth is a holiday, it's time to start working on reparations. The Democrats are much better playing a long game than Republicans are. Take, for example, healthcare. Senator Ted Kennedy in 1979 dropped the first piece of legislation for universal government subsidized healthcare. And of course, it was going nowhere, but he began dropping this legislation every year. And it would die every time. It would never advance. And slowly over time, Democrats were able to coalesce arguments around it. I think they're doing the same thing here, playing a long game. But part of what they must do in order to get there is to try to convince kids for the next generation, as they continue the reparations call, they've got to convince kids that they are oppressed or oppressors and that the country is systemically racist. And then they can do the next thing. If you've internalized that your nation is systemically racist, that racism is woven into the United States Constitution, that all of these things are a product of our constitutional structure and regime, then you can begin to make the case that, well, now we need to get rid of the Electoral College. Well, now we need to get rid of the United States Senate. Well, now we need to get rid of federalism. Well, now we need to get rid of the states, and they just need to be administrative subdivisions of the federal government. It becomes a long game over time once you've taught kids that they're either oppressor or oppressed, and that the system itself is where the racism comes from, to dismantle the system by building up enough support for constitutional amendments or building up enough support to begin again anew with a brand new constitution. I suspect that's where they're headed. It is a very long game. And again, Ted Kennedy started dropping the universal health care legislation that became Obamacare in 1979. And it took him from 1979 until 2009 in order to advance it. And he died of brain cancer shortly before it was completed. But he was able to do it. It is a very long game for Democrats. Republicans tend to get fixated on short-term things and move from one to the next. And the socialists out there in particular play a very long game. And frankly, they've got culture to go along with them. The culture on the left these days is striking to me, that they really do understand there's a societal drift, a cultural contretemps out there that they can benefit from. And they're using that societal discord, elevating and amplifying it, playing you against them, me against you, everyone against everyone, in order to agitate for some sort of social societal change. Remember that the real difference between your basic Marxist and communist is that the communists believed there eventually would come revolutions where the capitalists were overthrown. And I really do think that there are those on the left who have realized it's never come. The Soviet Union collapsed, and now they've got to do whatever they can to cause enough social strife in this country to affect change, whether through revolution or something else. And I just don't want that to happen. And I honest to goodness, I get tired of talking about these issues, but I also know that I've got to talk about these issues because they keep moving the goalposts, and you guys have got to be up to speed on them. Like, for example, I do want to spend some time here. Charles Cook has a great story over at National Review on how the left and the media don't seem to understand you. Many business owners, records Axios, the news site, argue that COVID-era enhanced unemployment benefits of $300 a week are keeping would-be workers at home. Thankfully, though, Axios is here to explain the big picture to them, which, in case you were blissfully unaware, is that, quote, workers are burned out not just from their jobs, but also by the cultural drama around them, fallout from the Trump presidency, continued police shootings, and the consequences of January 6th. Once again, I must ask, has the average member of the press corps ever actually met anyone in America? This isn't a conservative versus progressive thing. It's not a Republican versus Democrat thing. It's not a coastal elite versus flyover country thing. It's not even a Trump thing. It's a journalist versus normal people thing. Outside of the narcissistic and incestuous thunderdome that houses the American media, it remains the case that people simply do not think in the way the Beltway media elite believe they do. They are not traumatized by the daily news. They do not make key life decisions based upon the behavior of the president, nor wait for him to leave office before deciding they are so disturbed that they no longer wish to work. They are not fixated upon the latest congressional MacGuffin or the implications of a given riot or the occasional mistakes of the police. And when they are looking to enjoy a good cultural drama, they do not look for it in the same places as the editors of the Washington Post. Only journalists and politicians do that. Why? Because they're freaks, and I mean quite seriously, and I happily include myself in the description. People who argue about the national news every day are straight up oddities. Doubly so when they do it from New York or Washington, D.C. This reminds me of a friend of mine, Jeff, on Twitter. When Donald Trump was elected and everybody in the media was shocked, stunned, and appalled, he asked a very basic question. To the reporters of America who have blue check marks on Twitter, do you know anyone who owns a pickup truck? Do you know instead of reporters answering yes or no, they attacked him for his temerity to ask the question? Who the hell do you think you are to ask us if we know people who own a pickup truck? How dare you do that? They wouldn't answer the question. They attacked his character. They attacked him for asking the question. And his point was very simple. Do you know the number one vehicle in America? The number one vehicle in America is the Ford F-150. The number two vehicle in America is the Chevy Silverado. The number three vehicle in America is the Dodge Ram pickup truck. The top three vehicles in the United States are pickup trucks, Ford, Chevy, and Dodge. And number five is the GMC Sierra, by the way. So in the top five, three of the top five cars in America are actually pickup trucks. And members of the press, the blue checkmark brigade, who shape the news and opinion of this country, they don't know anybody who drives a pickup truck. And yet they want to shape the news and what you're interested in. You know, it's one of the things so Brett Bo, you all know Brett Bozell, I think. He's the head of the Media Research Center. He's a dear friend of mine. And years ago, he cornered me in an elevator. We were going to a meeting. And he says, I've been meaning to see you, Erickson. And he shakes his finger in my face. He says, I just want you to know the best decision you have ever made in your life is never moving to Washington, D.C. I've given up job opportunities by not moving to Washington or New York. Hell, I've given up job opportunities by not living on a daily basis in Atlanta. But by living in a place that I consider real America, where I encounter people, I live in a multiracial, it's the most ethnically diverse neighborhood in Middle Georgia. We go to church. I go to the grocery store. I do my own shopping. I'm not surrounded by an army of people who do this stuff for me. It's just I live life with other people. The only thing I want in life is a NetJet subscription so people stop yelling at me while I'm peeing in the Atlanta airport bathroom, which actually happens. But otherwise, I would love to have a house in Sea Pines on the beach in Hilton Head. There are things when I start making good money in radio I want to do, but I don't want to give up living in a place where I'm surrounded by regular people, ordinary American citizens who live life. I don't want to be a sheltered elite and lose touch. And by and large, I think if you move to Washington and New York, you don't have to be a sheltered elite. You just have to be someone in the media living in those cities. They give you a driver. They drive you to and from your office. They put you up in a nice place where you have a doorman. You never have to encounter people. Rarely do you have to go grocery shopping for yourself. You have assistants who handle everything. You lose touch with reality. You stop knowing people who drive pickup trucks. Part of the problem is, we used to have a media organization in this country that was headquartered in CNN and did global news. It was called CNN. You might have heard of it. It was always center left. Ted Turner owned it. Always center left. But they did a way better job in the past of understanding and being in touch with average, ordinary, regular Americans. And now everybody's lost touch, even Fox, which spends a lot of time trying to figure out what people in middle America are concerned about, is a bastion of New York City. We need a news that actually reflects real America, not just New York and Washington.
I really do like his opinion.
Hi there. How are you? 877-97-ERIC. 877-973-7425 is the number. And I go to the phones to Gary. You're up next. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Eric. It's good to be on the show. I've got a theory that I have not heard before about the vaccine being, or about the virus being from a laboratory. They said that it would take years to develop a vaccine. But if it was man-made or man-induced, it would be much easier to figure out exactly what was happening instead of various natural occurrences that could be random. So we have 5, 6, 7 manufacturers who created a vaccine in an unprecedentedly short period of time. And I think that points directly to the vaccine not being naturally induced, but being enhanced man-made.
The vaccine itself being well, the vaccine is man-made.
But the virus.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes. The virus. So there were scientists early on. I remember reading the story early on, and it was one of the things Tom Cotton pointed to. There were a couple of scientists early on that said the virus appears to be a natural virus that was manipulated. There were signs in the original COVID strains that appear to be manipulated. And I need to be clear here that your scientists don't make a virus. But what they can do is they can manipulate a virus to take something that is natural and essentially conform it in some man-made way. And there were some telltale signs from COVID in its genetic sequencing that suggested as much. Tom Cotton and others pointed to. Those scientists were excoriated. I think one of them lost their job. And now they're back saying, yeah, this is all the data we had in the beginning. And now people are starting to look at it and take it seriously. Now, why are they now suddenly taking it seriously? There's a data point I bet most of you have not heard. It's only come out in the last 24 hours. It appears a high-ranking member of the Chinese intelligence community
15
has defected to the United States. I'll give you the details on that
10.
when we come back. Welcome back. It's Erick Erickson. I want to be able to take your calls, 877-973-7425. Before I do that, I need to ask a question. During commercial break, I got 2 phone calls. One was an unknown number, and usually when it's an unknown number, it's someone important calling me. It was important enough that they wanted to call about my extended warranty. And then the next call was also an extended warranty call. Who the hell answers those and actually calls and wants the extended warranty? Because you're the idiots who have incentivized the rest of us getting the extended warranty phone calls. I mean, it's become an international joke. It's bizarre. I saw a meme the other day. It was a cartoon of the aliens land in the middle of Washington, D.C. on the mall, and the alien comes out and says, "We'd like to talk to you about your extended warranty." Where did this come from? Seriously, I don't know the answer to it. I have no idea. How did the extended warranty on your car become a thing? And who are the idiots who are forking over money for the extended warranty to such an extent that we're all now getting bombarded by phone calls about the extended warranty on our car? I mean, someone's got to be dumb enough to fall for it. There's got to be a lot of someone's. I mean, I realize people are stupid. When I get my coffee mug for this program, it's going to have the Erick Erickson Show logo on one side, and people are stupid on the other side. Because people are stupid enough to fall for the damn extended warranty thing enough that they're calling all of us now saying we all got to have an extended warranty. And clearly, they're making money off enough people that it's warranting the spam calls to all of us. Who is the idiot who's getting their extended warranty from these robocall solicitations? I keep getting some call, and it's, "Hi, it's Tiffany. I'm calling from the auto dealership about your extended warranty." And it even leaves a voicemail. It rolls to voicemail. I have, honestly, right now, I have 262 voicemails. And some of them are those spam calls. Like I've AT&T, I've got the little app that says this is a spam call, so I don't answer it. And it rolls over to my voicemail. And we'd like to talk to you about your extended warranty. You're sitting on the toilet and you hear a voice bubble up out of the toilet as you're taking it up. "We'd like to talk to you about your extended warranty." What is this? Why is it going on? I have no idea, and it's driving me crazy. It's driving every American crazy. And it wouldn't be happening except there's some idiot out there who's actually returning the phone call, and it's enough for them to make money to get all. I'm sorry. That was not on the show. I was not intending to discuss this. But 2 phone calls in a 5-minute commercial break to ask me about my extended warranty. It's not like I'm saying I'm going to do it. I know. You know, there's a new one for those of you who've written books. So I've written a couple of books, and now I get a call, and it's from India. And it looks like it's an American number, but they answer, and we'd like to talk to you, Mr. Erickson, about your book. I'm like, I got a publisher. You got to go through the publisher. You can't come through me to get me to transfer the rights to you to publish my book in India. And I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a very famous author the other day. He says he gets these now. He didn't even know he's got unlisted numbers and all, and yet they've been able to track him down. And why? I thought the FCC was figuring out a way to stop all of this stuff. Okay, I feel better now. I got it off my chest. I'm going to go to the phones now. First, I'm going to go to Richard. You're going to be up first. Welcome, Richard.
Eric, pardon me, I didn't hear the name. Okay, your intro music is terrific, and I just sit up and take notice when I hear it. Some years ago, there was a movie, Where the Wild Things Are, and they used that music in the promo on television over and over again. And I ran to see the movie so that I could hear that music. It didn't appear anywhere in the movie. But it's an iconic and brilliant selection of music on your part.
Well, listen, Richard, thank you. It is from the Funeral album by Arcade Fire. I'm an Arcade Fire fan. They're not Pearl Jam, but I love them.
Yeah.
And they've got several songs. Now, I will tell you, so Shani B, who works with me at WSB Radio, when I said I wanted an intro song, I wanted it to be that song. And around the same time, the NFL had done an advertisement, and they had something very similar, and they had a countdown. And I was like, I would like also to have the Apollo 11 countdown as a great way to start the show. And so that's what you hear when the show starts. It's a mix of Wake Up by Arcade Fire with the Apollo 11 countdown in it. And I think I've got the best intro in talk radio. I really do. And I realize Rush's the Pretender song is iconic. I realize that it was the iconic introduction to the Rush Limbaugh show. But I love Arcade Fire, and I love the song Wake Up. And I will tell you, God's honest truth is that Charlie and I both have had this experience where we've been out at a bar or somewhere, and that song plays, and we jump up and make a run for the door thinking, oh my gosh, the radio show has started. Why am I here? It does kind of actually freak me out when I hear the song now on radio, because I hear it and I think it's time for the show to start, and I'm stuck in my car. I'm at a bar and I'm 3 beers in. What's going on here? But I love it, and Shane did a remarkable job of mixing everything up in a perfect way to make it, because it actually goes on. The mix that I have, just if I want to start talking like I like to start talking 30 seconds in so that local stations have time to play a little promo if they want, but it goes on for like a minute and a half. And without words, if you ever listen to this program, I do not like to play bumper music with lyrics, because I don't like to talk over lyrics. I hate it. And some shows do, and it drives me crazy. So we take the time to cut up the music. In fact, if you follow me on Apple Music, I'm E.W. Erickson on Apple Music. One of the playlists is all of my intro music and outro music, and you can see those songs. I like them. All right, back to the phones. Tommy, you're going to be next here on the Erick Erickson Show. Welcome to the program.
Hey, how you doing?
Great. What's going on?
Oh, I just had a question. I live in Gwinnett County, and we're a pretty multiracial, multicultural county now. And I have several grandchildren now that will be going to school in maybe 10 years or so. By that time, that's what the liberals think the critical race theory will be in place. I just was curious as to what they're going to do with multiracial kids that say, my kids are going to be half and half, but not like an African American and a Caucasian person. They're going to be mixed, and depending on skin tone. Are they going to be declared oppressed or the oppressor?
So, there have actually been a lot of people on the left who write about this, and this is very, very bizarre. There's actually a deep animosity among critical theorists for interracial marriage. There's some deep hostility among proponents of critical theory for interracial marriage, and also for interracial adoption. And I have seen some on the left say that your mixed race child is still oppressed, and that the danger of a mixed race child is that they will embrace white supremacy unwittingly and become an agent of white supremacy. There are people out there who say this sort of stuff. In the same way, there are people who are opposed to interracial adoption because they believe that a black child cannot have an authentic black experience in a white family. What is an authentic black experience? I got no idea. And they would tell me that I'm privileged and a white supremacist, or for not knowing what it is. It's just the idea that, and what you have to understand here is the left's theory on this at this point is that we are a country that is a salad bowl, not a melting pot. And it's very essential to critical theory you understand the distinction. In a melting pot, your culture and my culture and everyone else's culture melts together and forms something new. It's like the bowl of queso. All the spices melt together into something flavorful and delicious. The left has embraced now the idea that we are a salad bowl. That your lettuce and my tomato and their cucumber and someone's arugula and someone else's herbs and spices all mix in the bowl together, but they are still very distinct. You can see the thyme and marjoram. You can see the lettuce. You can see the cucumber. You can see the tomato. You can see the arugula. They're all individually distinct, even though they're in the pot together. And that's the way a lot of things have been taught in schools in the last few years is away from the idea of the melting pot and towards the salad bowl, that each must have a culturally distinct appearance, which I think that in and of itself is racism. The idea that there must be a distinctly black culture, a distinctly white culture, a distinctly Hispanic culture, and they're not allowed to blend, and that if you do, it's now cultural appropriation. If you, the white chef, make Chinese food in your restaurant or a taco in your restaurant, you're now accused of culturally appropriating someone else's culture. A taco is my culture, you jerks. Taco Tuesday and beer is the greatest thing on the planet. Every American should like Taco Tuesday. If you don't like tacos, there's something deeply broken in your brain, particularly tacos and beer. They go together like pizza and beer. It's fantastic. And the idea that I'm culturally appropriating someone's culture by eating a taco. I mean, I would eat tacos every day. You know, when I am, as much as I cook, I am really a deeply picky eater. I cook a lot of stuff, and some of the stuff that I cook, I don't even eat because I don't like it, but I know other people do, and I can make it well. But typically, there are just things that I cook that I love. I'm really good at cooking them. It's not a bountiful thing of foodie culture, because some foodie culture is pretty gross. But when I was a kid, I was such a picky eater. To get me to introduce, to get me to eat a taco, my parents had to tell me a taco was a Mexican hamburger, because the hamburger is my greatest food. When I go to a nice restaurant for the first time, I get a hamburger, because if a nice restaurant screws up a hamburger, you know they're overkill and it's not worth it.
Eden pure.
And so I get the hamburger the first time I go to a nice restaurant. And if they got a great hamburger, then they're going to have great food. If you go to a nice restaurant and their hamburger is gross, then the rest of their food is overpriced slop. I love a hamburger. I love tacos now, the Mexican hamburger. I'm not kidding. That's what they had to do when I was a kid. All right, y'all. I got to tell you about Eden Pure. It is the air filter in the Erickson household, the air purifier in the Erickson household. This thing is portable. It is small. You can hold it in your hand. You can put it in your car. You can use a USB cord and power it, or you can plug it into the wall in your house. I use it in our kitchen now because we don't have an exhaust vent. At some point, we got to get an exhaust vent back in the house. But when I'm frying shrimp like I did the other day, my wife hates the smell of shrimp, period, in the story. So I can use the Eden Pure. Instead of putting in a diffuser and her essential oils and masking the smell, use the Eden Pure. It eliminates the odor. It eliminates black mold. It cleans the air. It is a great, great, well-built machine. If you want one, you can get $10 off the lowest sale price at EdenPureDeals.com. Eden, like the Garden of Eden. EdenPureDeals.com is the website. And what you do is you go to EdenPureDeals.com. You click on my name on the front page of the website, and you'll see the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. You can add it to your cart, and then when you go to checkout, there's a discount code, and you put Erick, E-R-I-C-K, as your discount code. You'll get $10 off the lowest sale price. They'll get it to your house. I know a guy now who's got like 5 or 6 of these things, and they clean the air. They do a good job. They do what they say they're going to do, and they're filterless too. You just wipe it occasionally, and it does a great job. EdenPureDeals.com is the website.
News and in-depth analysis.
Howdy. All right, let's see here. To the phones, Marcus, you are going to be the last caller. Marcus, welcome to the program. How are you?
Pleasure, Eric. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
You were speaking the other day about Chicago and their traffic cameras, where they've decreased the speed limit fines from 10 miles an hour to 6 miles an hour. And kind of curious to why we don't do something like that here in Atlanta, where there is absolutely no police presence on any highway throughout this city. You have guys driving 100 miles an hour, weaving in and out of traffic without any fear of consequence. And I think that's just kind of indicative of the Atlanta community as a whole right now, where people are just, there's no fear of consequence. Just like Chicago, where cops can't chase people on foot anymore, thanks to, Mayor Beetlejuice up there. And, I'm just curious to why the Atlanta and Georgia as a whole doesn't start giving out electronic tickets and supplement and pay the salaries of state troopers with the money generated from the fine.
Oh, Marcus, I vehemently disagree with you on this one. I'm opposed to the cameras and the auto speed detection devices because everywhere it is done, including in Chicago, it's used as a fundraising mechanism more so than it is used to enforce the law. And in fact, they more commonly put them in poor neighborhoods or neighborhoods close to state lines or county lines so that people in the county or the state, the voters in that area, aren't paying for them. They're designed to raise money. And the issue in Chicago is that they were giving people a pass within 10 miles of the speed limit. If you were within 10 miles of the speed limit, you didn't have to pay, you didn't get a ticket, but they lowered it without telling people to 6 miles over. So now if you're going 6 miles over the speed limit and higher, you get a ticket as opposed to 10 miles over. This is a tax on poor people because you have the right to confront your accuser in court. And so when rich people either hire a lawyer or themselves know the law, they show up in court and say, show me my accuser. And the accuser is a digital robot that oftentimes takes a picture of the license plate, but not a picture of the person driving. And they can say it's not me. And then they can take the Fifth Amendment. And in so doing, they get themselves out of a ticket that a poor person can't. It is abusive in the system to robotically abdicate law enforcement. And I understand why some cities do it and stuff. But I'm actually not a big fan of robust traffic enforcement to begin with. And it's not like I'm a super speeder or anything like that. I just think most cities do this in order to raise revenue, not to actually enforce the law. Atlanta's problem is that the Atlanta mayor crapped all over the police and they all quit. There are police officers who will enforce traffic regulations, and in some places they deny it, but they make them have quotas. You got to give so many tickets. My mother-in-law got a ticket from a guy over in Carrollton. Literally, she turned right, pulling out of somewhere, and then immediately had to get over in order to turn left. And he gave her a ticket for crossing too quickly from one lane to the next after pulling out of somewhere. I kid you not. And my mother-in-law is like, he's a young cop. He's got a quota to meet. I'm not going to fight the ticket. She's better than me. That would have, it makes me mad that he did it to her. The idea that when you pull out, you've got a 2-lane road headed in one direction and you cross the one lane into the next because you got a left-hand turn coming up. That's absurd that they would give anyone a ticket for that, but this guy did in Carrollton. And you've got city after city in Georgia, the Doraville area and the like. They use tickets and highway patrol to raise revenue for the city, not to actually enforce the law or make the road safer. I am vehemently opposed to outsourcing to robotic cameras doing that, and I think it's a affront to our civil liberties, and everyone should be opposed to them. And frankly, I have a soft spot for the people who beat up the cameras. I don't encourage civil disobedience, no, but I'm maybe I'd buy them a beer if I knew who they were. I shouldn't say that. Y'all have a great weekend. Starting Monday, we really are a nationwide show. I'll see y'all then.